Welcome back to Connected Tech Talks, and in my last video we talked about the advantages that the iPad Pro has over the MacBook Air and the advantages that the MacBook Air has over the iPad Pro. However, one of those big differences between the iPad Pro and the MacBook Air was that the iPad Pro is just faster. Why is a device that doesn't even have a fan so much faster? Well, it's because iPads use something called an ARM-based processor, whereas MacBook Airs and all other Macs use an Intel processor. So what happens if the leaks that MacBooks will be switching over to ARM-based processors in the next couple of years are true? Okay, so like we talked about like 5 seconds ago, or I guess the intro was 6 seconds, so 6 seconds ago, actually now longer than that because I've been rambling. Okay, so what we talked about before is that Macs use Intel. This is fine. Intel processors are good. Intel processors are known for their ability to be very high performing, actually, very powerful and things like that. While ARM-based processors, such as those used in the iPhones like the A13 chip and the iPad Pros such as the A12Z chip, are known for being much more power efficient and heat efficient and small. And that's very, very good for a portable device, because what do you want on a portable device? Most of the time you don't want fans, which for an Intel machine are pretty much necessary to keep the device cool, but you still want power, but you want it to be in the smallest form factor possible. Apple, with their A series of chips, has been making these chips smaller and smaller, but yet more and more powerful. Imagine if MacBooks had the same chips as, say, an iPad Pro. That would be pretty dang cool. Leaks and rumors say that this is going to be coming in 2021, and my prediction is that it's going to start in the MacBook Air or MacBook lineup to try and start with the lower end Macs, and then eventually switch over all of the portable Macs, and then maybe reach into iMac territory with these ARM-based processors. So if we see this on a new, remember the 12-inch MacBook? If we see a new 12-inch MacBook, that could be the birth of a new MacBook without a fan like the old 12-inch MacBook, but doesn't get extremely hot, but is insanely powerful. And imagine if Apple let the chip be a little bigger and still included a fan. Then it could be insanely powerful and the computer would never overheat. And we might see that in something like a MacBook Pro down the line. That could be amazing. Then say in a MacBook Pro, you only need one fan. It's possible you don't need any fans with an ARM-based processor in a MacBook Pro, but I would assume they want to keep one fan. And with the power, the sheer power that the A series of chips is displaying in iPhones and iPads, what if we see something like an A14Z chip in the next MacBook? And that would be incredible. We could see so much faster speeds, so much less overheating, and that can allow Apple to fulfill their dreams of making the lightest and smallest portable laptop. So especially for MacBooks, they're portable Macs, it just makes so much sense to move over to ARM MacBooks. And I'm not the guy to explain to you why ARM-based architectures are better than Intel processors, but I know that ARM-based processors are generally more power efficient and better at managing heat, and that can be something that MacBooks desperately need, or it is something that they desperately need. The current design form for MacBooks, this one right here, this design, started with the 12-inch MacBook in 2015. Then it was ported over to the MacBook Pro and then the MacBook Air. So what I'm assuming, I think rightfully so, is we'll see something like that again in 2021, like I talked about, where Apple starts with one of the lower end Macs and is like, okay, this is now an ARM-based Mac, and it has a new design of some kind. And then they'll begin to port that over to MacBook Air, or if it starts in MacBook Air, then just into MacBook Pro territory. But of course, it can't be that easy, right? Or Apple would have already done it. First, I assume that Apple has contracts with Intel. Apple has probably been working on these ARM-based MacBooks for a long time, but I assume that they have contracts with Intel saying they can't sell them yet. So that's the first thing stopping them. I don't have reason to believe that other than that just makes sense. Or I think Apple would have been doing this a long time ago. The other thing is Mac OS and every single app on the macOS App Store and every other app that you can download from Safari for your Mac is built for Intel processors. With the announcement of a new MacBook that is ARM-based, developers will basically have to redesign the core functionality of their apps in many ways in order to support the new ARM architecture. It's not as easy as just manufacturing a new MacBook Pro that has an ARM-based chip in it instead of an Intel chip. And that's the reason I think they'll start with the lower end MacBooks. The people who just need the stock macOS apps, Apple will already have those ready for them. And that gives time for other programs to update and be ready and more compatible and learn, okay, what exactly do we need to do to update our app in order to support new MacBooks. And there's going to have to be a lot of communication there. It's going to be a big switch for a lot of developers between Intel chips and ARM-based chips. And especially for a while there are many Macs that still have Intel and then some that have ARM. So we might be looking at an iPhone 10 or a first generation iPad Pro situation where developers aren't updating their apps to where they need to be updated, if you know what I mean. So I think ARM-based MacBooks, amazing, very good, yay, let's do it soon as possible. Let's get those in there so we can start this transition as early as possible. I'm assuming their contract ends at the end of 2020 or early 2021, which is why we're seeing leaks and rumors that they're doing it in 2021. But yeah, I'm excited. It'll be powerful. It'll be like iPad Pro powerful, which is crazy. Which is like, imagine if a MacBook Air or a 12-inch MacBook is as powerful as an iPad Pro. Imagine how powerful the MacBook Pros will be in the future. Of course, we also talked about the problems with switching and what that's going to look like for developers and for Apple. Because not to mention, macOS will also need to be completely transitioned from Intel-based to ARM-based, but I'm sure Apple has already been working on that. Anyway, tell me what you think about ARM-based MacBooks in the future, and as always, stay connected. What? You're waiting for me to say something? Stay inside.